So hello everybody, my name is Germán. I'll first talk a little bit about myself and then I'll talk about the project I'm doing. I'm gonna show you a presentation and then go a little bit into TouchDesigner and also do a quick demo and hopefully it works. I was messing around with it in the last few hours, so hopefully I didn't jinx myself and break it all. But anyways, so yeah, my name is Germán. I come from a software engineering background mainly, and I've been kind of dabbling with digital art in the last few years, and specifically in the last year, actually, I've been using TouchDesigner. Mainly, I use it for kind of audiovisual type videos that are kind of creating some relationship between music and visuals or music and some kind of video effect. And I mainly post my work on Instagram, and it's mostly a hobby for me, so I'm not really doing this as a job or anything. It's more of a side thing. And yeah, that's kind of my background. And then about this presentation, so yeah, I'm not a streamer, so that's the caveat, but I was very interested when Bileam brought up this idea of how do you connect TouchDesigner to Twitch? What can you do with this capability? So I decided to give this a shot and kind of explore what was possible with this with Twitch and the API, Twitch API. And so yeah, I'm going to show you what I kind of prepared for this presentation, and hopefully you can get some ideas for your own projects and kind of yeah, find your own ways of using this. And also I'm going to share the code at the end on a GitHub repository that you'll be able to reuse for your own purposes. So, okay, I'm going to share my screen and start with a quick presentation. One moment. Sorry, trying to find the
slideshow.
Oh, there, that's the button I was looking for. Okay, so what is this presentation about? It's about collaborative interactivity with TouchDesigner and Twitch. And what I mean by collaborative is basically multiple people at once interacting with the same TouchDesigner instance. What am I trying to build? So like I said, somehow allow multiple users to simultaneously collaborate on the same art piece. And how do they do this? Well, they can send messages through the Twitch chat into TouchDesigner. And then TouchDesigner can translate these messages back into some kind of visual representation. And then those visuals are then streamed back to the audience via the Twitch stream that the users can see on the page. What are some of the constraints of this format? So one constraint is that all users have to see the same video output. So whereas if it was like some kind of web, native web thing, like some kind of Canvas thing or something like that, then in that case, users may be able to see different outputs based on their own interactions. But in this case, we're channeling the output of the system through Twitch, which means that every user will see the same video. Another constraint is that due to this live stream format, there's about a 5-second delay from the moment that users send a message to when they actually see the change in the visuals, which was a little bit disappointing, but it's kind of unavoidable. But it does mean that you can't really, at least with this approach that I'm proposing today, you can't really build any kind of like very real-time things. It's always going to be a little bit delayed. And the other limitation is that we're only using text messages from the chat. So, like I said, if it was a native web thing, we could use other inputs, but in this case, we're only using the text that the user enters into the chat. What is the project overview? So basically we have, this is like a high level description of what the project looks like. So it's kind of like this loop that starts on the left with the audience. So we have an audience member entering messages into the chat. Those messages get sent to via a WebSocket connection to a WebSocket DAT operator in TouchDesigner. Then I send the output of this operator basically into another subcomponent I made called the message interpreter. And the purpose of this interpreter is to take the messages in the chat and translate them into some format or some structure that the visual system will understand. So it's sort of an intermediate step. Then in the visual system, we have, it takes those, that structured data, and then it visualizes it in some way. After this, I send the visuals out through an NDI port to a OBS, which OBS is a separate program. It's called for streaming video to Twitch and YouTube and different providers. With this NDI source, it basically allows you to connect different applications that know the NDI protocol. So with TouchDesigner, I can send the visuals to OBS via NDI. And then I'm not going to demo this today, but another option you have here is with OBS, you can combine different sources of video, like webcams, sources, or other applications into a single stream. And then OBS sends the stream out to Twitch via RTMP. And this is where the 5-second delay is introduced. Now, in a second, let me see if I have the, sorry, let me just jump to this part first. A second alternative to what I just showed you is, instead of using OBS, I could have used something called Video Stream Out. That's an operator in TouchDesigner. But I found that this required an NVIDIA card and Windows. And even though I do have a Windows laptop, I've been working mainly on my Mac for this project. So I decided to go with the OBS approach for now. But I think this would probably be a simpler setup, because then you only need to run TouchDesigner, and you can do all your compositing and things all in TouchDesigner. And a third option that I didn't go with, but is also something you could think of for your own projects, is depending on the complexity of the project, you may want to implement the kind of the WebSocket logic as its own program. If you need to do something that's kind of fairly complicated, and maybe you want to scale this separately, maybe you want to have this on a separate computer. In that case, you could run that program on either Node.js or Python runtime, and then send messages to TouchDesigner via OSC using over UDP. And so this is sort of an alternative architecture for this type of setup. But for what I'm going to show you today, I used option 1, which was using the WebSocket DAT and using OBS. And then what does it actually look like? So what I ended up building was this, I call it a quick Twitch constellation, which is basically this little visual representation of users on like a 2D plane. So when users join, they basically get assigned a point on this 2D plane, and then their username appears next to the point, and they're able to move that point with chat commands. So for example, join just allows them to join, then left with a number, or right, up, down with a number moves the user's dot in that direction. And then the number here is in a range from 0 to 100. And then they can also choose to stop, and then their point will stop on the screen. And then I also added 2 admin commands. So these are sort of commands that only I can run as a user. And reset is to clear everything. Everything gets deleted. And then sim, which simulates what would happen if 50 users joined at once. Because obviously I've been kind of testing this on my own, or just with a couple of friends. But I wanted to test it out with what it would look like with many people. So I just type in sim, and then it kind of simulates many users joining. Let's see. Yeah, I'll talk about this first, and then I'll do the demo. So what does a Twitch Chatbot API look like? So it's basically an IRC protocol over WebSockets. So what this means is you make a connection to the Twitch API over WebSockets, and this is WebSockets means that it's like a bidirectional connection that stays open. So basically, you can send messages, and Twitch can send messages back to you without closing the connection. So it allows for really quick and really fast messages. And IRC meaning that the format of the messages that come through this connection, they have a specific format that's kind of described by the IRC protocol. And Twitch doesn't implement the whole protocol, but it implements sort of the main parts. And for this project, I'm using some like the very basic parts of it, and I'll show you in a second. There are two different ways to get access. So there's read-only access, and this you can do, it's very simple. All you have to do is when you log in, just choose a username that has this format, like just in time, and then a number. And then Twitch just interprets this as an anonymous user, and then you can get read-only access to messages in the chat. Additional access you can get, like if you need to actually write to the chat, then you can it requires getting an access token. And getting the token you can do by going to this URL. And by the way, this is like a community tool, like that kind of helps you get the token. Technically, you can get it yourself, but that takes a little bit of coding and setting up like a server that you can get a redirect from. So somebody set that up and you can reuse this for your own purpose. But basically you can go through to, I can actually just go through it right now. You click on this, you're logged in, you should be logged in as your Twitch account. You go through this little workflow and then it outputs a token. And then you can copy this token and use this for authentication in the next steps that I'll show you. Back to this. Okay, so actually, yeah, I just finished the Twitch chatbot part. So maybe I'll just do a quick demo of what it kind of looks like, and then I'll go into the TouchDesigner part. So here we have my Twitch stream. Right now I'm streaming to it from OBS, and I'm going to type a join. So we have to wait, like I said, this is the awkward part because there's this 5-second delay from when the video starts streaming to when we actually see something on the video here. Okay, so now we see a little dot that just started moving on the screen. That's representing me as a user. And then I can change the direction of this by typing, for example, left 30, we wait, or for example, down 60, oops. And so now in a few seconds, it's going to change direction. So now it's moving to the left. And now in another few seconds, it's going to move down by 60 out of 100 is the kind of range. Oh, I guess we have other people joining. So yeah, you're welcome to join that. And I'm going to join on another computer so you can also see like more users. So I'm going to type in join. And yeah, whenever the two users' points kind of get close to each other, they kind of create like a line that connects the users. And the effect is not really that visible when there's a few users, but when you have, 20, 30, 50 maybe, then you start getting like this constellation effect. Yeah, I can just demo that right now. So if I type in sim with my admin user over here, I'm going to, it's going to simulate in 5 seconds. It's going to simulate like 20 users, 25 users at once. Let's see what that looks like. And it might not come through really well on Zoom because, with the lag. But anyway, so you can see that. There's a bug, I think. Okay, that's interesting. That the username, I don't think it's correct. Bad Mayor somehow got assigned to all those users. It should have been a different username, but okay. Anyways, I'm gonna reset it now just so I can show you a different part. So another thing you can do is I can also change my color. So for example, if right now my color is blue in the chat, but let's say I change it to orange, I think. Oh, that's not a valid color. Let's see. What's a good one? Hot pink. So I changed my color to hot pink. Now I'm going to join. And now, wait, it didn't change my color.
It does for me, like for me, now you look differently.
Oh, okay, there we go. I don't know, for some reason it didn't at first. Okay, so now as you can see the point on the video. So in other words, yeah, the point here in and the stream for me is pink. So as you can see, I'm also capturing the user's color in the visual effect. So actually, I should go into Twitch Designer because I don't have so much time now. So I'm gonna jump out of Twitch and just quickly go through Touch Designer. One moment. And there's some kind of advanced Python coding that I don't have time to go into, but I can definitely answer the questions about this later in the chat. So the first, that diagram I showed you in the beginning, that kind of, it's kind of visually represented here pretty closely to what it looked like on the diagram. So on the left, we have the Twitch chat controller, and this is where the WebSocket connection takes place. So what we have here is we have a WebSocket DAT connected to Twitch via the WebSocket address on port 443, and that's connected to a callback Python program that essentially when it connects, it will log in. So this is where authentication happens. So this is kind of like where that IRC protocol takes place. And then when it receives a message, it basically takes the output or takes that message and puts it into a FIFO table. And that's what we see here. So here you see every message that will come into the chat. You will see a username here, the color of the username, and the actual message here in the third column. And so that's the job of this component, is just to take those messages and put them in a table. The next component, which is the interpreter, is basically the job of this component is to take those messages and interpret them in some way and translate them into an input that the visual system can understand. And for this project, I decided to represent that input as textures. So in other words, the user's positions, velocities, and colors are each represented in a separate texture. So for example, right now there are 3 users. So the first user's position is represented by this pixel, the second user is represented by this pixel, and the third user is by this pixel. And that's also, same with the velocities and same with the colors. And as you get more users, if I type in sim right now, so now, I think 20 something users joined, and now you can see this texture change size, and we have now a lot more pixels where each pixel is representing a different user. And how that works exactly is a bit complicated. I don't think I have time to explain it all, but it basically involves a Python program or Python, what is this called? The DAT execute that takes the FIFO table from the first operator from the first component I described, and basically keeps state of the users that are in the program or in the chat. And as that user changes their position, up, down, left, right, it then updates the corresponding record in a table for that user. So for each user, there would be one record in this table, and each column in the table represents either RGB for color, or position X, position Y, velocity X, velocity Y. Then I take each of those values, I split them into the right categories, and then from the tables I convert them to chops, and from the chops I convert this to textures. So basically, through this process, I end up getting 3 different textures, which end up being the input to my third system, which is this visual node system. And this is basically a render network that has 3 different geometries. So we have our circles, which are here, and we have our usernames, which are down here, over here, and we have our lines, which are right here. And basically, the position of those things are determined by the texture, by the position texture in the last step that I showed you, and the color of the period of the circle is determined by the color texture. And yeah, so I know that I'm kind of getting away from the actual Twitch idea, but I just wanted to show you what that kind of look like. Yeah, so I guess I just wanted to show you this kind of possibility, and that is that you can have many users on a Twitch stream and sending messages that are controlling a visual part of your system, whatever system you create, and then you can find ways of combining the users these users commands into like one kind of shape or one thing that you want to make. It's a very open-ended problem, so it's like really up to your own creativity to what you want to make with this. And yeah, hopefully you found this interesting.
All right, cool. Hello, everyone. My name is Nick. I go by Tiwanku online, and thank you for allowing me to share today. So, like I said, this presentation is probably gonna touch on something a little bit different, which an aspect of Twitch that is also I've found vital to TouchDesigner as well, and that is the sense of community, which community has kind of taken on a whole new meaning recently, especially given the kind of tumultuous times in which we live. And so it feels weird doing this presentation within that context, but I just, it's really great to be able to share this time with people who love TouchDesigner as much as I do. Okay, so my new media journey kind of started at the beginning of the pandemic, which is a time that I think was defined for a lot of people, myself included, by like a removal of a sense of community from our lives. In some ways, that was maybe even a good thing for some people. Like in my case, I was finally able to sit down and really dedicate the amount of time, the free time that I had to learning TouchDesigner and like developing some skills that would eventually lead to a sort of kind of a career change. But at the same time, like I was just felt very alone. I'm sure that some of you have experienced the days or weeks without human interaction, enough to make even the most severe introvert like me seek out ways of filling that void. So this is where Twitch comes in. I found Twitch, and in particular, I found Twitch through a stream by a guy named Kenny Beats. He's a music producer out of LA, and took to streaming over the pandemic and very quickly built himself a community of thousands and thousands of mostly musicians and artists and beat makers. But like he had an incredible sense of community, and everyone in there is it's I think over 100K people to this day and still thriving. People are in there collaborating and learning from each other all the time. I cannot shout out Kenny Beats and Don't Overthink Shit, which is the name of his company, enough. The other community that I want to shout out is called the Golden Shrimp Guild. I'm sure that there's at least a couple of synthesizer people in here. The Golden Shrimp Guild is a group that does a full-on 4-day music festival every single month on Twitch. That's dedicated to like synthesizer music and live setups. And it's incredibly accessible. If you have 1 or 2 synthesizers or even just Ableton Live or a DAW, like you're able to go in there and perform and meet people, and it's an incredibly awesome community. So through experiences like these, as like a consumer, as like a just I found community without the sense of a in-person community through these types of places. That kind of directly led into me experimenting with my own live stream. So I built a system within TouchDesigner. much kind of like the system that Germán just went through, with connecting to the IRC Twitch Chat API, injecting sort of, you know, some of my experience as a DJ with visuals, using TouchDesigner, and then also the interactive chat elements. You can see some of those commands down at the bottom of the screen, where the chat could change the color of the visuals on my screen, or change like the speed of the visuals, or also I developed, there was a framework, I guess, that I centered a project around, which was called Easter eggs, which was like kind of oh, and yeah, if you see the physical lights in my room are changing color also. So it was like a connection with the Philips Hue API with Twitch, which was like really fun to develop. Yeah. But so yeah, so the Easter eggs were like an interactive like activity that I would develop every week. And then the trigger word or the command for it would be like a surprise, and I would give out like clues and people would guess, and then we would go ahead and do that activity. An example, if you've ever seen the DVD screensaver thing, this is just an example, hopefully the video comes through okay. I set up the same DVD thing bouncing around the screen, and then also chat commands to be able to change the speed, either like vertical or horizontal speed. So the idea was to try to aim the DVD thing at the corner. And then when it hit the corner, there was this it was a whole moment, and it was really fun. Like it was like a lot of this was just kind of about being goofy and just like hanging out with people online, especially because the lockdowns were still pretty intense at that time. Here's another one where people would join in and everyone would kind of go around the circle to add a word to this diary entry, affectionately called Diarweeka. Here's one that is another Easter egg. We actually found a extension, which I'm not going to go through details today, but it's called Heat, and it allows you to actually get the mouse position data from Twitch, so the audience can actually click on the screen, and then you can take that XY click data into TouchDesigner to be able to process. So we built this kind of like Minesweeper / hide and seek kind of game where audience would click on boxes and hide in the boxes, and then there would be like one person that would be trying to find them. So yeah, all really fun stuff. And I was trying to analyze what was it about this Twitch community that I found so fulfilling. And I think that a big part of it was the real-time aspect to it, different than most other social media platforms. When I was streaming or when I was in another stream, the people that I was interacting with, I'm really interacting with in that moment in time, as opposed to most platforms that we're used to, which is, you know, you post something on Instagram and people see it whenever they see it and they can comment, and, you know, there's nothing, you know, I mean, we could go on a whole conversation about about social media and its impact on the world, but like there was a distinction there that I found really fulfilling to have, you know, this group of people that was sharing the same sort of digital time and space. There was like a temporal, everyone's there at the same time and everyone's there in the same sort of digital space, which kind of connected to my own like mindfulness practice. And here's where the sort of mindfulness aspect starts coming in. I was starting to do this stuff all just for fun, right? And so at some point I started to like think about, okay, how do I take some of these principles and inject some, like, you know, some benefits that I've gotten from my own life from concepts like mindfulness? How do I foster that, I guess, through the streaming format. And so one of the installations that I built was sort of a meditation thing where chat would come in. There's this shape on the screen, and let me actually, I think I have a, yeah. So I'll just talk over this while it's going, but this shape that was on the screen would kind of like expand and contract, kind of like lung. And the more people that would join in and breathe together simultaneously, the larger that magnitude of the expansion and contraction motion would then become. So it would be like you would pay attention to your breath, but you would also be intimately aware of where other people are in their breath because of where how the installation worked. So it kind of like the concept was kind of about synchrony or this concept of like entrainment. I've actually had a bunch of conversations with Steve. I think I saw him on the call earlier about this, but every time that I've run this activity, it starts off with like some people breathing out while other people breathing in, and it kind of creates this really jittery sort of experience with the installation. But after like, you know, after a couple of minutes or so, people just have this kind of unspoken like way of synchronizing with each other, so that everyone's breathing in at the same time and everyone's breathing out at the same time. And it really created this sort of graceful, sort of satisfying kind of motion that that really inspired me to kind of keep going down this down this sort of line of inquiry. Using again, I'm using TouchDesigner for all of this. So yeah, so, you know, community, there's, you know, the TouchDesigner community is incredible, as most of you know. My next project, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, but I started with Panic's amazing generative structures tutorial, shout out to Panic, as the base sort of foundation for the visualization that I made for this next installation, which was called Heartbeat Here Now. This was an in-person but also online installation, where the people there would like you would move in front of the screen, and I'm trying to be mindful about time, so let me know, Bileam, if I'm getting close.
No stress. No stress.
Okay, cool. So you would walk in front of the installation, and then your silhouette would kind of leave these organic trails in their wake, and then you would put your hand on this sensor, and once you put your hand on the sensor, it would start to visualize your heartbeat into the room as well, and not only yours, but the combination of yours and your counterpart's heartbeat, because there are two sensors. I hope that's coming through okay on the slide. It might not be, but I think I have a next slide here. Yeah, so this is what the box looks like. You can put your hand on there, and then there was a live, bringing it around to live streaming. There was a live streaming aspect to this too, where if you notice in the top left corner here, it says click. I brought that same heat interaction into this, where this whole kind of in-person experience, and again, it kind of looked like this. It was also being simultaneously live streamed. So as people were interacting with it in person, people could be interacting with it from the internet, from wherever they happen to be, and clicking on the screen, and those clicks would show up on the physical projection in the physical space. So the hope was that it would create a sense of like sort of a ghostly presence in the room. And, you know, one time in particular, there was like, I got in a game of cat and mouse with somebody who was like clicking on the screen, and I was chasing around the clicks, you know, and it was just a grand old time. So yeah, so here's another picture of it in use. It's again sort of the combination of this sort of fostering a connection with your own biological rhythms, like with your own, like, you know, fostering mindfulness by your awareness of those biological rhythms, but also like kind of at the same time fostering a connection between yourself and another person. So that was kind of the concept. It used Connect for the silhouette stuff, and there was some sound involved. The title referenced back to a book by a guy named Ram Dass called Be Here Now. Heartbeat here now, be here now. I ran into a bunch of interesting challenges. This goes outside of the scope of this talk, but in terms of like setting up an in-person installation, mounting the projector, and like finding a secure way to keep the laptop stored and stuff. Yeah, we could talk about that more if you know, if people want to later on. Yeah, and then the title screen for the for this installation, I actually just made a tutorial on the technical side of that in on YouTube. So if you're interested in how I did this sort of particle text, like converging and diverging thing, I just uploaded that the other day. So so let me see if there's anything else that I was planning on talking about. Oh yeah, so this is kind of the last thing I wanted to mention. This is a current project. I am helping this group called Server versus Server. There are Discord is an incredible place, and there are all these servers dedicated to like music production around the internet, and there's this competition that's held called Server versus Server, where each music dedicated server will bring a team together, and that team will create an EP, which then goes head to head with other teams' EPs in this competition that kind of brings the whole online Discord music-based community together, and it's an incredible thing. I'm helping them with their streaming setup in Twitch right now, but I have to mention that with the amount of musicians that are kind of in there and they're making their music, and there's a lot of those people who would be very interested in some custom visuals to help their, you know, like, so if anybody in here is looking for commissions or, you know, collaborators, like musicians to you know, this is a really incredible kind of mix of a bunch of different communities that are all doing that might be interested in some of the wonderful work that you guys can do with TouchDesigner. So so just wanted to shout that out as well. That is, a competition is just starting, and yeah, so that is and that's all. It all takes place on Twitch and then Discord. Yeah. So I'm just looking through my notes here just to make sure there's not anything that I am. No, I think that's pretty much it. Cool. Well, again, thank you all for sharing this time with me and listening.